What if the most powerful British World War II films were hiding in plain sight, forgotten by the masses? These weren't just movies. They were stories of sacrifice, survival, and heroism, lost to history's shadow. Some were masterpieces, others were buried by failure. But one of these films, it's a hidden gem with a perfect 100% score. Stay tuned as we count down the 15 forgotten British World War II films you need to see. Starting with a true classic you've never heard of, The Colditz Story, 1955. At first glance, The Colditz Story may seem like just another World War II POW drama, but don't be fooled. This film holds more depth and grit than most others in its genre. Based on the real-life accounts of British prisoners held at the infamous Colditz Castle, it dives into the psychological warfare, intricate escape plots, and constant tension that define their lives. The prisoners here are not just battling the enemy, but their own isolation, fear, and the crushing weight of their circumstances. What sets The Colditz Story apart is its portrayal of human ingenuity under pressure. These men weren't just trying to survive, they were outwitting the system in ways that make this film both riveting and emotionally charged. There are no grand battle scenes or explosive set pieces, just the quiet desperation of a group of men determined to escape at any cost. It's a raw, authentic depiction of resilience and determination, showing the human side of war, far removed from the larger-than-life portrayals in other war films. It might not be flashy, but it's incredibly powerful in how it depicts the psychological toll of being imprisoned and the enduring human spirit. For anyone who appreciates war films that explore more than just the battlefield, The Colditz Story is a must-see. The Sea of Grass, 1947. The Sea of Grass is a rare breed of war film, one that steps away from the action-packed, heroism-filled narratives we often expect from World War II movies. Instead, it offers a deeply introspective and emotionally charged exploration of the aftermath of war. Set in post-war Britain, the film focuses on the quiet devastation left in the wake of the conflict, particularly on how love, loss, and trauma intertwine in the lives of those trying to rebuild. With a focus on human vulnerability and the emotional scars left by the war, it takes the viewer on a journey of emotional reflection rather than physical conquest. The film revolves around a couple who must come to terms with the loss and sacrifices made during the war, showcasing how different people cope with grief in their own ways. Unlike other war dramas that rely heavily on explosions or combat, The Sea of Grass is an intimate story about how the human spirit contends with profound emotional wounds. Its power lies in its slow, methodical pacing and subtle performances, where every silence speaks volumes. It's a meditation on the fragility of the human condition and the challenges of finding peace after war. Despite its profound impact, it remains a largely forgotten gem, quiet, powerful, and quietly transformative in its storytelling. The Wooden Horse, 1950. Imagine being trapped in a German POW camp with limited options for escape. That's the premise of The Wooden Horse, a taut, suspenseful war thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Based on the true story of 3 British prisoners who used a makeshift wooden horse to hide their escape tunnel, this film brings the ingenuity and resilience of those trapped behind enemy lines into sharp focus. The concept itself is genius, using a dummy horse to fool the guards into thinking it's a harmless piece of furniture, while the real work of escape happens underground. The tension in the film is palpable, as the prisoners must work in secrecy, knowing that any mistake could lead to capture or worse. What makes The Wooden Horse stand out isn't just its suspenseful moments, but its emphasis on the human spirit's ability to innovate under extreme pressure. This is a story of survival not through brute force, but through cleverness, courage, awe, and unyielding determination. While it never reached the iconic status of some of its peers, it is an incredibly underrated classic. The pacing is tight, the stakes are high, and the payoff is immensely satisfying. If you're looking for a war film that's as much about brain power as it is about bravery, The Wooden Horse deserves a spot on your watch list. A Matter of Life and Death, 1946. In a genre dominated by gritty realism and battlefield heroics, A Matter of Life and Death stands apart as a war film with a profound philosophical edge. This 1946 British film blends surrealism with tragedy, offering a striking narrative about a British pilot, Peter Carter, who miraculously survives a plane crash but finds himself stuck between life and death. Caught in a bizarre afterlife court trial, he must convince celestial beings that he has a reason to live. What makes a matter of life and death so unique is its ability to explore complex existential themes: fate, love, sacrifice, and the nature of life itself, while still grounding itself in the war experience. The film is visually striking, employing groundbreaking techniques to represent both the earthly and celestial realms, giving it a dreamlike, almost surreal quality. But it's the emotional depth of the story that truly resonates. The connection between the pilot and his love interest is heartbreaking, made all the more poignant by the looming question of whether he will live or die. Despite being one of the most innovative war films ever made, it's often overshadowed by more conventional World War II dramas. But its powerful mix of philosophy, romance, and war tragedy makes it a standout that deserves far more recognition than it typically gets. The Dam Busters, 1955. If you're looking for a war film that combines heart-pounding action with real historical significance, The Dam Busters should be at the top of your list. This 1955 film tells the true story of a British bombing raid on Nazi Germany's critical dams, a mission that became one of the most daring and memorable of World War II. What sets this film apart from others in the genre is its focus on the incredible technical precision and ingenuity required to pull off such a difficult mission. The use of innovative bouncing bombs, designed to skip across the surface of the water and explode against the dams, adds a layer of complexity and suspense that few other war films can match. And the movie captures the excitement and the emotional toll of the raid, portraying not just the heroism of the mission, but the cost of sacrifice, including the tragic loss of life. The Dam Busters stands as a tribute to the bravery and resilience of the men who carried out the mission, yet it remains underappreciated outside the UK. Despite being revered in Britain, it hasn't achieved the international recognition it deserves, making it an overlooked treasure for fans of classic war cinema. For anyone who appreciates historical accuracy blended with thrilling action, The Dam Busters is a must-see. The Big Blockade, 1942. What if the most devastating battles of World War II weren't fought with bullets, but with starvation? The Big Blockade takes you into a side of the war most films ignore: economic warfare. Released during the height of the conflict, this film wasn't just entertainment, it was a message, a warning, and a psychological weapon. It explores how Britain attempted to choke Nazi Germany through blockades, cutting off vital supplies and slowly suffocating an entire war machine. But here's where it gets gripping. This isn't told through a single story. Instead, it weaves together multiple narratives, showing civilians, smugglers, and soldiers all caught in the invisible grip of war. The tension doesn't come from explosions. It comes from desperation, hunger, fear, survival. You begin to realize that war isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, and far more terrifying. While many dismissed it as propaganda, there's a haunting realism buried inside its structure. It shows how entire nations can be broken without a single battlefield victory. Today, it's almost completely forgotten, overshadowed by more action-heavy films. But if you want to understand the hidden mechanics of war, the strategies that don't make headlines, The Big Blockade becomes essential viewing. It's not just a film, it's a chilling reminder that the most powerful weapons are often the ones you never see. The Longest Day, 1962. D-Day has been told countless times, but never quite like this. The Longest Day doesn't just show you the invasion of Normandy, it immerses you in it from every possible angle. British, American, German, every side, every perspective, every moment of chaos unfolding simultaneously. And that's what makes this film so powerful. It doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like history happening in real time. The scale is staggering. Massive beach landings, airborne assaults, strategic miscalculations. Every detail is crafted with near-documentary precision. But here's the twist. Despite its scale and ambition, The Longest Day often gets overshadowed by modern war films like Saving Private Ryan. And that's a mistake, because what this film does differently is something rare. It respects the intelligence of the viewer. It doesn't spoon-feed emotion. It lets the weight of the event speak for itself. You see confusion, bravery, fear, all unfolding without dramatic manipulation. The result? A cold, immersive realism that lingers long after the film ends. It's not about one hero, it's about thousands. And that makes it far more powerful. Forgotten by newer audiences, yet still unmatched in scope, Namu The Longest Day is not just a film. It's a cinematic time machine back to one of the most critical days in human history. Went the Day Well? 1942. Imagine waking up in a quiet English village, only to realize the enemy is already inside. Not invading, but pretending. Blending in, waiting. Went the day well? Takes that terrifying concept and turns it into one of the most unsettling British war films ever made. Released during World War II, this film dares to ask a question that hit too close to home. What if the war reached your doorstep, and you didn't even recognize it? The story follows a small village infiltrated by German soldiers disguised as British troops. At first, everything seems normal. Then slowly, the truth begins to unravel. And when it does, the tone shifts instantly, from calm to pure dread. What makes this film so powerful is its unpredictability. Characters you expect to survive don't. Violence arrives suddenly, without warning, and ordinary civilians are forced into extraordinary acts of resistance. It's not polished, it's not comforting. It's raw, tense, and shockingly brutal for its time. This wasn't just a film, it was a psychological warning to the British public. Stay alert, trust no one. Even today, it feels disturbingly relevant. Despite its bold storytelling, Went the Day Well? Rarely gets mentioned alongside other classics, but once you watch it, it's impossible to forget. Because it doesn't just show war, it brings it home. In Which We Serve, 1942. Before the explosions, before the spectacle, there was duty. In Which We Serve doesn't open like a typical war film. It begins in silence, in reflection, in loss. A British naval ship has been destroyed, and the survivors cling to life in the open sea. But instead of rushing forward, the film pulls you backward, into memories of the ship, the crew, and the lives they left behind. That structure alone creates something deeper than action. It creates attachment. You don't just watch these men, you know them, their families, their fears, their quiet courage. What unfolds is not just a war story, but a tribute, a deeply human portrait of service, sacrifice, and identity. The film doesn't glorify war, it personalizes it. Every decision feels heavy, every loss feels earned. And by the time the story catches up to its opening tragedy, the emotional weight hits harder than any battle sequence ever could. This was one of the earliest British films to capture the collective spirit of wartime resilience, yet today it's rarely discussed outside film circles. That's what makes it powerful now. It feels rediscovered, a reminder that war isn't just strategy, it's people, and In Which We Serve ensures you never forget that. The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, 1943. This is not the war film you expect, and that's exactly why it lingers. The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp dares to challenge the very idea of what it means to be British during wartime. Instead of focusing on battles, it follows one man, Clive Candy, across decades, tracing his evolution from a proud young officer to an aging relic of a bygone era. And here's the tension. The world has changed, but he hasn't. The film quietly questions whether honor, tradition, and gentlemanly warfare still have a place in a brutal modern conflict. That's a dangerous idea, especially during wartime Britain. And yet, the film leans into it fearlessly. It's reflective, emotional, even uncomfortable at times. You watch Candy hold on to ideals that no longer work, and you feel the weight of that realization. Visually, it's rich and expansive, but emotionally, it's even deeper. There's romance, regret, friendship, and loss woven through every phase of his life. It's not about winning a war. It's about understanding what war takes from you over time. Initially controversial, even criticized upon release, the film has since been recognized as one of Britain's greatest achievements in cinema. But for many modern viewers, it remains undiscovered, and that's surprising because its message feels more relevant now than ever. The Way Ahead, 1944. What transforms ordinary men into soldiers? The Way Ahead doesn't just ask that question. It answers it step by step, moment by moment. The film begins not on a battlefield, but in training. A group of civilians, different ages, backgrounds, personalities, are thrown together and shaped into a fighting unit. At first, there's friction, doubt, even resistance. These are not heroes, not yet. But that's where the power lies. You watch the transformation happen slowly. Discipline replaces chaos. Unity replaces division. And by the time they face real combat, something has changed. They've become something greater than individuals. What makes this film stand out is its realism. There's no exaggerated heroism, no invincible characters, just gradual growth, earned respect, and the quiet formation of brotherhood. When the action finally arrives, it feels grounded, because you understand what these men had to become to survive it. Released during the war itself, The Way Ahead served both as storytelling and morale building, showing audiences the process behind the courage. Today, it's rarely mentioned among major war films, yet its influence is undeniable. Many modern military dramas owe their structure to this very blueprint. It's not about the glory of war, it's about the making of those who must fight it. Ice Cold and Alex, 1958. 4 people, 1 ambulance, and a desert that doesn't forgive mistakes. Ice Cold and Alex takes everything you expect from a war film and strips it away. No massive armies, no heroic charges, just survival at its most brutal level. And set during the North African campaign, the story follows a small group attempting to escape enemy territory, crossing miles of unforgiving desert where the environment itself becomes the enemy. And that's where the film tightens its grip. Every drop of water matters, every mile feels longer than the last, and every decision carries consequences that could mean life or death. What makes this film extraordinary is its restraint. The tension doesn't explode, it suffocates. Slowly, quietly, you feel the heat pressing in, the dehydration creeping through every scene, the growing mistrust between characters as exhaustion begins to fracture their unity. These aren't invincible heroes, they're human beings pushed to their absolute limits. And that vulnerability is what makes it so gripping. There's no spectacle here, no dramatic shortcuts. Just a relentless journey where endurance becomes the story. And then comes the ending, simple, understated, but deeply satisfying. A payoff that feels earned, not forced. Despite critical praise, Ice Cold and Alex never achieved the widespread recognition of other war films. But those who discover it understand immediately. This isn't just a hidden gem. It's a masterclass in tension. Proof that sometimes the quietest war stories hit the hardest. The 49th Parallel, 1941. What if the enemy didn't need to invade because they were already inside? The 49th Parallel takes that chilling idea and turns it into one of the most psychologically intense wartime narratives ever created. The film follows a group of German U-boat sailors stranded in Canada after their submarine is destroyed. Their mission sounds simple: cross the country, reach the United States, and escape. But nothing about this journey is simple, because every step they take brings them face to face with a world that rejects everything they believe in. This isn't just a survival story, it's an ideological collision. As the group moves through different communities, each encounter becomes a test, not just of endurance, but of identity. Farmers, intellectuals, workers, each represents a different piece of Allied society. And with every interaction, tension builds. Because these men aren't just outsiders, they carry a mindset that isolates them, even when they're surrounded by people. What makes the 49th Parallel so powerful is its refusal to simplify the enemy. It doesn't excuse them, but it forces you to understand them, their fear, their desperation, their rigid thinking. It's uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it works. Released during the war, it served as both propaganda and storytelling, but its layered narrative gives it lasting impact. Today, it's rarely mentioned, yet it remains one of the smartest war films ever made. It doesn't just show conflict, it dissects it from within. And once it does, it stays with you. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. This is where war stops being about enemies and starts becoming a battle within the mind. The Bridge on the River Kwai doesn't rush into action. It builds something far more dangerous, tension rooted in pride, discipline, and obsession. Set in a Japanese POW camp, British prisoners are forced to construct a railway bridge for their captors. At first, it's resistance, defiance, survival. But then, something shifts. There's something unexpected and deeply unsettling. The British officer in charge becomes consumed with the idea of building the perfect bridge, not for the enemy, but for honor, for legacy, for pride. And that's where the film becomes something else entirely. Because suddenly, the line between duty and collaboration begins to blur. What are they fighting for anymore? Victory? Identity? Control? The film unfolds slowly, deliberately, tightening its grip with every scene. And when it reaches its climax, it doesn't just deliver, it detonates, emotionally, psychologically, visually. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about leadership, loyalty, and the cost of ideology. This isn't a simple war story. It's a character study under extreme pressure. Despite its acclaim, many modern viewers overlook it in favor of faster, louder films. But few movies go this deep. Few challenge you this directly. The Bridge on the River Kwai doesn't just depict war, it exposes the mindset behind it. And once it does, it's impossible to look away. Third Man, 1949. This is not where the war ends. This is where the consequences begin. The Third Man doesn't take you to the battlefield. It takes you into the aftermath, into a shattered Vienna divided by occupation, where trust has collapsed and morality feels negotiable. The war is over, but something darker has taken its place, and from the very first moment, you feel it. Something is wrong. The story follows an American writer searching for his missing friend. But what begins as a simple investigation quickly spirals into something far more disturbing. Lies, betrayal, secrets buried beneath the ruins of a broken city. And then comes the reveal, one of the most iconic moments in cinema history. A moment that redefines everything you thought you understood. What makes this film unforgettable is its atmosphere, the tilted camera angles, the haunting zither score, the sense that the world itself is unbalanced. This isn't about war, it's about what war leaves behind. A society trying to rebuild while corruption quietly spreads through the cracks. And at the center of it all is a character so charismatic, so unsettling, that he lingers long after the film ends. Critically, it stands at perfection. A rare 100% score. But more than that, it's a film that rewards attention. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And those whispers are far more haunting than any explosion. The Third Man isn't just a masterpiece. It's the kind of film that changes how you see everything that came before it. War isn't just remembered through history books. It lives inside these forgotten films. Stories buried, voices nearly lost, truths waiting to be rediscovered. But one question remains. How many more masterpieces are still hidden in plain sight? If this list surprised you, you're only scratching the surface. Tell me, which one shocked you the most? And if you want more hidden cinematic treasures, you already know what to do.